Welcome to Beat Diabetes. On today's program, I'll be interviewing a lady who was significantly overweight. She had sky-high blood sugar, and she was facing an operation where she was only given a 50% chance of survival. Well, she did survive that operation, and it wasn't long after that she found a way to beat diabetes. Well, folks, I have a wonderful lady that I have gotten to know over the last couple of months, and her name is Jacqueline DeWylde. Jacqueline, welcome to Beat Diabetes.
Hi, Dennis. Thank you so much for having me.
As a diabetic, you sent me some information about your story, and one of the things that grabs me immediately was the very first line. You said, "When I was first diagnosed almost 2 years ago, I was terrified and I didn't know where to turn." Tell us about that first diagnosis. Did diabetes creep up? Did it blindside you? And just tell us about what it was like to be so terrified and those early days.
Well, I had been taking care of my mother who had Parkinson's with dementia, and for the last 3 years of her life, she was bedbound, and my mom had been diabetic for as long as I can remember. Back somewhere around my 20s, I think, is when she got diagnosed. And my mom was an unusual case in that when she found out, she told the doctor she wanted to get on insulin right away. And back then, it was, common thought that insulin was the way to go. And her doctor was even surprised that she wanted to do that. But I think the reason she wanted to do that was because she didn't want to give up sugar and cake and, the sodas, and she drank alcohol some. And so I think that was her reasoning behind that her thought process was, well, I'll just take the insulin and then, everything will be fine. And of course, everything seemed fine for a while, but towards the end of her life, like I said, she had the dementia, and I've since learned, since I've been studying about diabetes, that they're starting to call dementia diabetes type 3. And so that has been a really eye-opening thing for me as well. But when my mom passed and I went to the doctors for regular checkup, and I had been feeling kind of tired, and I really thought it was because I just, the accumulation of taking care of her had just worn me out. And, after the funeral was over and everything, I was still dragging and wasn't sleeping well, thirsty a lot, going to the bathroom a lot. And diabetes runs in my family. It is rampant in my family on my mother's side. And so why I didn't make the connection with that, I have no idea, but I didn't. So I went into my doctor's office, and he took my blood sugar, like they do just on a regular exam. He didn't do an A1c or anything, but he took my blood sugar. And so that was on a Thursday afternoon. And he called me. He was so concerned. He called me on Saturday morning at home, which, that's unusual for a doctor to call a patient on the weekend. And he said, your blood sugar is at 365. And he said, you've got some really bad diabetes going on. I want you to come into the office. We're going to have to put you on insulin. And I cannot tell you the level of terror that went through me at that moment, because I've got relatives who have had amputations. I've got relatives who have passed from heart issues related to diabetes. My mom had her own issues with diabetes. She had neuropathy in her feet. Her balance was off. And then, like I say, the dementia was another component. And so he did an A1c. I went into his office, and he did an A1c. And I think it took like 3 days for that to come back. And my A1c was at 12.7.
12.7. And let's talk about when he first shared the news with you. He told you you had a 365. He said, you've got really bad diabetes. Did the 365 mean anything to you, or was it just the words, you've got really bad diabetes, that got you?
Well, I knew that 365 was really high because I had been taking care of giving my mom her insulin shots in the last years of her life. And her doctor had her on a regimen where if it was 125 or below that we didn't treat, and if it was 125 to 150, she was on a sliding scale of how much insulin I had to give her. So I knew 365 was really high. And that did scare me, but when he said, you've got really bad diabetes, that's what terrified me. Because I thought, man, if it's really, and it's got to be really bad if he's calling me at home on a Saturday morning, you know?
Well, sure. And you had been caring for your mom. You had seen the effects it had on her, and apparently other members of your family you knew of that had issues and amputations and so forth. So diabetes was not some unknown factor to you, but apparently you never really thought you would get it, or did you?
I did not, and that's the thing is, I don't know why I had that mindset, because I was overweight. I've lost 160 pounds so far. I was 5'0" and I weighed 357 pounds. Before the diagnosis came in, I actually had to go, and I had a 20-pound mass growing in my abdomen, and that had to be removed, and that was from PCOS, which is polycystic ovary syndrome, and that many women who have insulin resistance or who have prediabetes or are diabetic have that going on. And mine was extremely large, but I did not realize that that was going on. I had a lot of pain. I had a lot of stuff going on in my legs, numbness in my legs, and I thought it was all related to being fat. And what it was related to was having that mass in my abdomen, and it was putting weight on my sciatic nerve. It was pressing on my diaphragm. And I had asked the doctor who wanted to remove it if we could wait, because he told me I had a 50% chance of dying on the table, and because of my weight and because the mass was so big. And so I asked him if we could wait, and he said no, we can't, because it's growing, it's continuing to grow, and it'll continue. It's already pushing on your diaphragm, which is causing the asthma, and if it continues to grow, it'll press on your heart, and your heart will stop. So I had a pretty serious decision to make about, having that surgery, because if something would have happened to me and I had not have been able to survive, I don't know what would happen to my mom. And so luckily God saw me through that, and I've got a cousin who's a physical therapist, and she came down and stayed with me for a week after the surgery. And once they removed that, I was able to start moving again, and the feeling came back in my legs and in my feet. I still have a little bit of tingling in my toes, but that's getting better. And I honestly do believe that a lot of the stuff that was happening in my feet was a neuropathy from the diabetes. But I have seen a massive improvement in that since I've been eating low carb as well.
Well, that is great. Let's talk about the doctor's advice, what he did for you. Usually doctors will, at that level of blood sugar, they'll give you some meds, maybe insulin. They may or may not give you advice. They may or may not send you to a nutritionist. What did the doctor do for you after finding out your A1c and realizing that you had severe diabetes?
Well, I feel very fortunate that I have the doctor that I have, because I begged him to let me try to control it with food. Because I knew that, you could eat better and be better. So that's what I wanted to try to do. I had no clue exactly how to start that, but I asked him if I could please try it with food, and he said yes. And he said, I want you to realize that you may be one of those people who does everything right and you still end up having to take insulin. And I think he said that to me because of the family history. But I just kind of smiled at him, and he knows I'm a Christian, and I just kind of smiled at him, and I said, well, you don't know who my daddy is. I'm believing for this. And he said, okay. So we talked a little bit about having the low glycemic index foods, and the places that he was telling me to look, like the glycemic index was like I was going to be eating nothing but lettuce for the rest of my life, And so I got in the car and I just prayed all the way home. And I asked God, I said, Dad, I don't know what to do or how to go here, but I know you have the answers. And I'm just going to trust you to show me where to go and how to, eat. And that evening when I got home, I got on my phone and I was searching on YouTube for low glycemic foods. And I got a lot of conflicting information. So I just decided I was going to bed. I went to bed and I prayed before I went to bed. I woke up the next morning and I had never seen you or your channel across my feed ever in my life. And I got up the next morning and I was scrolling through YouTube and your channel was the first channel that came up on my feed. And I was like, I know. And so I was like, okay, Dad. So I started listening and I must have listened to 10 or 15 of your videos that day. And subscribed and set my notification bell so I didn't miss anything. And I've been watching your channel ever since and learning so much, and got introduced to Dr. Fung through your channel and intermittent fasting, and I've implemented that now too. Most days I eat 2 meals a day. Once in a while I'll do 3, but most days I eat 2, and I'm trying to work up to do OMAD at least 2 or 3 days a week because I still have weight that I want to get off. And I've increased my exercise, and that's helping too. So it's just, I have to be patient and realize I didn't get here overnight, so I'm not going to recover overnight. But I'm going to get there, and I'm already so much healthier than I was. My last A1c was 5.7, and my physician's assistant had to do the blood test because my doctor was busy working on the COVID thing here in town at the time. And he was so happy with my lab results, he emailed me in big capital letters, "Your labs look great!" Exclamation, exclamation, exclamation. I mean, he was thrilled. So he sent me another email and he said, "What you're doing is working. Keep doing that. Great job." And so it works. And I'm so honored that you asked me for an interview because I'll be 60 in February. And there are so many women my age who feel helpless and hopeless and already because they're, having postmenopausal weight gain or whatever. And then they get diagnosed with diabetes and it's like all the air goes out of their balloon, and they're looking for help and they're getting a lot of bad misinformation. And so I'm very grateful to you for giving me the opportunity to share because I hope and pray that other women and men in my age range, will hear my story and know that there is hope and they can, like your channel says, beat diabetes.
Amen. Well, you're breaking all the rules of what women are supposed to do and say because women are never supposed to give their age, and you've given your age. They're never supposed to give your weight. You've given your original weight and told how much you've lost. Let me see if I've got this right. You've lost 160 pounds, right, so far?
Yes, correct. That's correct.
And your latest A1c is 5.7.
Yes, and my goal is 5.3. I see these people that get into the 4s, and I'm kind of jealous about that. But if I get to 5.3, I'm going to be thrilled. I'm happy with 5.7, but for some reason, 5.3 is like my goal.
Well, that sounds pretty good to me. Let's go back for a moment and get to that first day that you're looking on the internet, on YouTube. You see my channel, you watch a bunch of videos. What kind of impression did you have? Did you say almost immediately, I think this guy is right? Or did you say, well, I don't know about that? What was your impressions when you started watching some of these videos that we do?
I knew that you were right. And I knew it was an answer from God because I had prayed and asked him to show me what to do because I knew the simple things. Like I knew, no sugar, no soda pop, the cakes, candies, and donuts and everything. But I had no idea at the time that like wheat bread wasn't really any different than white bread and what it does to a diabetic's sugar glucose spike. I learned a lot of fruit that I've always thought was a healthy, good choice. Not so much. And I got tickled at the video that you did comparing the 2 bananas and the 2 candy bars because there's so many people that, were kind of giving you a hard time about that video, but it was eye-opening to me that bananas spiked you even higher than the candy bars. And so that was another thing. I was terrified about sticking my fingers, and I didn't want to do that, but I just decided to cowgirl up and go get a meter. And it has been an amazing wealth of knowledge. I keep a chart of all the tests that I do. And so I take it when I go into my doctor, I take that into my doctor. And the last time I went in there, he's like, this is a lot of testing. And I said, that's true, but this is also a lot of knowledge. Because I follow a lot of the keto people on YouTube for low carb ideas. And a lot of them that are not diabetic, they love that Choc Zero syrup. And so I thought, well, I'll give that a try. It seems to be working for them. I ordered 2 flavors of that. And I had my regular low-carb pancakes that I have often. I know they don't spike my blood sugar. And I put 2 tablespoons of that Choc Zero on the pancakes. And an hour later, my blood sugar was up to 253 from 2 tablespoons of that. So that went in the trash. And but I would have never known that had I not learned from you that I need to check pre and after meal. Because, most of the doctors tell you check it before each meal and, tell me where you're at before each meal. Well, that doesn't give you the whole picture at all.
When you began to test yourself, did it take very long before you started seeing your numbers going down and began to realize, hey, I think this is working. I think I can beat this thing?
It did not take long until my numbers started coming down, but my numbers were so high that I was very, very frustrated in the beginning because, I guess we all want that magic pill, as it were. And I was like, when am I going to get down into the 90s or the 100s, And I was down to I would wake up in the morning and I was in the 180s, which was a huge improvement over being in the 360s range. But yet I still knew that was extremely high. So it didn't take long, probably about 2 months, and I was down into the teens because the second A1c that I went to was I think it was 7.3 or maybe 7.6. The second A1c he took after the 12.7. So I was making progress, and my doctor was really happy. I was just being impatient. But these days, my waking blood sugar ranges anywhere from 90 to 110. Once in a while, if I haven't had a good night's sleep, it'll be up in 116 or 120 range. But that always comes down after breakfast. So I think I've got some of the dawn effect going on with me in the mornings. And then the rest of the day, if I'm eating low carb, which I always do, and I'm not having a lot of stress, I'm, 85, 110 at the highest after I eat. Once in a while, if I have, it's still considered a low carb meal, but it's higher carb than I usually eat. Like if I have a sandwich with sola bread or something like that, I can get up in the 135, 140 range, but I never go over 140, and that's rare. So I'm pretty happy with my numbers right now.
You're kind of a cook, right? I mean, you've got this YouTube channel and you've got different recipes. You talk about how that you prayed and asked God to give you a pizza recipe, and you are really enjoy the process of finding and discovering and creating low-carb meals.
I really do, and it's kind of gotten to be a joke with my friends because I have some friends who are recovering diabetics, and then I have some friends that are not diabetic, and they love to challenge me to take a high-carb food and make it low-carb friendly. And one of the things about the pizza recipe that you mentioned is that I have been trying for over a year to make a pizza recipe, and I came up with several that were okay, but they just weren't like the real deal. And I was in the kitchen one night, and I just got so frustrated because everything I was trying, they were still kind of coming out kind of dry and a little crumbly sometimes. And I said, God, please help me with this. You gave me this desire in my heart to have this channel and to create all this food. I really need some help with this. And I stayed in prayer for a little while longer, and it wasn't too long where I heard him down in my spirit say, okay, let's go in the kitchen. And he literally told me everything to put in this recipe. And that's why I call it my Amazing Grace pizza recipe, because it is the only low-carb pizza recipe I've ever had that actually tastes like regular pizza crust. And on top of that, it's super simple to make. It doesn't take any time at all.
Well, that is awesome. I'll put a link down below. You made a video about that.
I did.
And then you've made a number of other videos as well. Before we let you go, let me ask you, a lot of people want to know specifically. They'll say, okay, he or she said they beat diabetes, they went low carb, but we need specifics. We need to know what exactly are they eating. So tell us what it is that you would eat just give us a sample of maybe a breakfast, a lunch, or a dinner, or maybe you just eat 2 meals a day. Give us a couple of meals that you might enjoy, and they're kind of like part of your go-to menu.
So at night, I usually keep my dinner meals pretty simple. I'll have like turnips. I like to cut turnips up and use them like hash browns, and cook them in a little bit of butter and coconut oil in a skillet, and I'll have that with hamburger. I love to do rotisserie chicken, and I'll have like a really pretty salad with that. And for me, I'm one of those people that love salad, so it's not hard for me to eat salad. And as long as I put a lot of color with low-carb veggies and the orange bell peppers or the red bell peppers and radishes and all that, I really enjoy that. And then I also do some of the keto desserts once in a while as a meal. So if I'm having a sweet craving, I'll do, like a chocolate mug cake or like a lemon blueberry cake or something like that. And I'll have that for my evening meal because I've had a larger meal at earlier in the day. And when I say my evening meal, I usually do breakfast around 11 o'clock and then eat my last meal between 4 and 5. So it's, it varies with me. I'm one of those people, I like to eat a lot of different things. But everything that I choose is low carb.
Let's talk for just a moment about the weight loss. You lost a lot of weight. I mean, there's a lot of weight loss programs that if they had somebody like you following their program, they'd have you on one of their commercials talking about it. Was that a big deal with you at the beginning? Were you saying, I've got to lose weight, or was that more of a byproduct of just going low carb? How did you do it?
It was absolutely a byproduct of me going low carb. And I had always wanted to lose weight. Nobody that's overweight wants to be overweight. So that had been something that I had wanted all my life. I've been heavy all my life. But the moment that I decided to go low carb, the most important thing for me at that time was getting my blood glucose down and getting my A1c down. And while the weight loss has been a beautiful, beautiful blessing, and it has been because I can move again, I can walk. Before I had the operation, I was having to ride one of those scooters just to get through the store to get groceries and stuff. So my mobility is off the charts compared to what it used to be. And the weight loss is just a beautiful blessing in addition to the blood sugars being corrected so I don't die.
Yeah. Well, so you don't ride the scooters in the grocery stores anymore?
Oh, absolutely not. In fact, I try to park as far away from the front of the store as I can sometimes just to get extra steps in.
Wow, that is awesome. Well, I had a feeling your answer would be something along those lines, because we see so many people that lose a lot of weight, but it's never been their number one goal. Usually it's not even number two. It's like way down the list somewhere. Yeah, it'd be kind of nice. And then the pounds just drop off. And it was the case with you. It sounds like to me you've gone from a place of terror and fear and all those things to a place of incredible hope and optimism. Am I right or am I wrong?
No, you're absolutely 1,000% correct.
Well, that is great. Now, tell us what your YouTube channel handle is so they can look it up. We'll leave a link down below, but go ahead and tell us.
Oh, okay. Thank you. It's low carb lish, Lish, like delish.